Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Pod.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We have another great episode for you guys today. Week 8 is almost over. We're halfway through, more than halfway through now, the fantasy regular season. Wow. And we have so many bye weeks still to worry about. But not in Week 9. It's only 2 teams on bye. But we all going to be talking waiver wires, talk about injuries, and into things like that today. So, of course, we have Coach Tyler on the show today. What's going on, Coach Tyler?
What's up, guys? Hopefully y'all were on the right side of a National Tight End Day yesterday.
I was, for the most part. Actually, I wasn't. I actually got destroyed because of a Kyle Pitts and Cade Otton combo I was playing against. So it's what it is. But it was National Tight End Day. So hopefully you guys were able to sneak out a win in Week 8. But there were definitely some things to talk about here, especially injuries, some key injuries too. And let's get started right on that. So Week 8, Jordan Love, groin injury, left about halfway through that game in Week 8. It's only supposedly a sprain, so it's not something that he will miss significant time for, which is fantastic because I have a lot of Jordan Love shares. So Jordan Love is going to probably be okay. He might maybe miss a week, but for the most part, he's not in a long-term injury situation. Christian Kirk, fractured collarbone, is out for the season now. So no more Christian Kirk this year. Brian Thomas Jr., rib and chest injury. They said out 2 to 4 weeks, and then I saw day-to-day. So take it as you want. There's a good chance he misses Week 9 at least. And Gabe Davis, all the wide receivers for the Jaguars getting hurt. His injury, I did not see exactly what it was, but he was injured. He barely played in this Week 8 game. Drake May, concussion, after starting off pretty strong against the Jets. Likely to gonna miss Week 8. Kendry Miller, hamstring injury. Jordan Mason injured. Deebo Samuel injured. Good for them. They're on buys. I don't know why I didn't put this, but and this is big heart to you there, Coach Tyler, but Stephon Diggs, a nasty non-contact knee injury here. I'm still waiting for that MRI report to come back in on that, but he did not practice today. They play on Thursday night against the Jets. So it's definitely a scary situation. But overall, Coach Tyler, how do you feel about injuries from Week 8?
Yeah, really the biggest thing I could say from all the injuries this week is just go get Evan Ingram anywhere you can. We have Christian Kirk out for the season. Brian Thomas, whether he's day-to-day or 2 to 4 weeks, they're going to need someone to rely on for receptions, and you couldn't do that with Gabe Davis anyways. So him not even being out there doesn't affect too much. But go grab Gabe Davis. Obviously, the Stephon Diggs, it looked like a season-ending injury. Went in on a cut, came up holding his knee, went straight to the ground, wasn't touched or anything. And so, the Texans wide receiver room, Tank Dell might be a guy to go get. We're still at least this week, 1 week out from getting Nico Collins back. They're saying that he hasn't had any setbacks and he's projected to come back Week 10 when he's first eligible. But if Diggs is out, the person that I would think immediately steps into that role is Tank Dell. And I think that we then begin to see that glimpse of what we saw last year with Dell and Stroud and that connection, especially once we have Nico Collins back, who, if he can return to form, is going to take a lot of eyes on the defense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That chart, that Jaguar situation is going to be really key because obviously you're looking at potentially 2 of the top 3 players gone. Evan Ingram, definitely, like Coach Tyler said, is a guy that is going to likely step up. A guy that we're going to talk about in a few, Parker Washington, is someone also who is going to have name value moving forward, at least for another week, for at least a week or two. Even Brenton Strange, they did a lot of 2 tight end sets after they lost half their wide receivers. He saw involvement in this game here. So we're definitely going to see some new faces in Jacksonville catching the ball for a while here. Definitely a big injury concern with that. Yeah, Stephon Diggs, though, it didn't look great, and something to keep your eye on here. Unfortunately, like, I just don't know who I would want to go after in Houston. For 1 week, I mean, Xavier Hutchinson, Bob Woods, John Mechie, none of these guys have really stepped up. Maybe it's Dalton Schultz. Maybe we're just going to see more Joe Mixon running the ball 30+ times in this coming week here. But
especially against the Jets.
Against the Jets, yeah. A short week, yeah. It's definitely not great for CJ Stroud right now for fantasy, who has disappointed in terms of fantasy production especially without Nico Collins on the field. Now you lose another top wide receiver. So all of it is kind of like just all over the place right now, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully Jordan Love's fine. But let's get into some waiver wire talk for the day, guys. Starting off with the quarterbacks. And again, this waiver wire week, not the best overall. And you'll notice that once we get to the running backs, but this is not the week to kind of go all in on a whole bunch of players. There's maybe 2 or 3 players that I really would want to go after for the most part. And that's about it at max. But we'll start with quarterback. And of course, the top quarterbacks that I have going on the board this week here. Oh, we actually have a comment. Let me see what that comment is first here. Yeah, they did say day to day. They did say that afterwards. Yes, thank you for that. We appreciate that. So we'll have to see with Brian Thomas Jr. But top quarterbacks off the board right now, you're looking at this coming week. If you need a quarterback, you're looking at Jameis Winston, who had a fantastic game his first time as a starter for the Browns. Looked really good on the field there. Matthew Stafford, came alive with his top wide receivers back in this game here, this past Thursday Night Football. He's someone very interesting. Bo Nix had a fantastic week. Again, was against the Panthers, but again, he plays the Ravens this week, who just allowed Jameis Winston to just go nuts on them, and their secondary has not been really good. And maybe Malik Willis, that rushing upside that he offers at the quarterback position, something to be considerable against Detroit, who they're going to need to find ways to score, and they might have to use Willis to run the ball if Jordan Love is going to miss. So, but Coach Tyler, who is your favorite quarterback option this week in fantasy to pick up?
I really got to go with Jameis Winston. He's a guy that I've always loved. I still remember how legendary the 30-30 season was. But he came out and did exactly what people remember him doing and expected him to do. And he did it against a good defense, which is one of the bigger things. This is his first start, and I couldn't tell you how long. And he goes out and puts up 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a clean game with no interceptions. Like, I know the options aren't overly attractive for the Browns receiving compared to someone like a Matthew Stafford, but we know that as Nick Chubb continues to get worked back and Jerome Ford, they figure out that backfield, they're going to let it fly with Jameis. That's been his brand since he entered the league, and it's what he does best. And that's really the only way that they're going to win games. And so I think he continues to let it fly. He goes to the Chargers this week, they play the Chargers this week, and then he gets the bye week. And he has some really tough matchups leading into fantasy playoffs, which kind of makes me wary. But at the same time, I trust the passing volume that he's going to have. And the Stafford has been disappointing this year, especially if you drafted him expecting him to have all his weapons. He hasn't for the entire season. But we saw what can happen when he has them, right? 279 and 4. He's pretty consistent on his passing yards numbers. It's just the touchdown variance is where his fantasy weeks either live or die. And so I love Stafford. If you want something that's a little bit more secure, but if you're looking for an immediate option right now, if you need someone that's going to have the upside to go win you big games, it's got to be Jameis, because he's going to throw the ball and he's going to just launch it downfield more than anyone else.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, if you're in need of a quarterback, there are definitely great options for you this week if you're struggling. The 49ers, and I don't know why I can't think of the other team on bye this week, but the 49ers are a big team on bye. If you have Brock Purdy as your quarterback, you have great options for you this week to go up, and they have good matchups too. So it's not too shabby when it comes to that. So But if you're looking at the higher percentage guys, some of my guys might be out there. I mean, Trevor Lawrence probably don't really want him as much now without his wide receivers. Aaron Rodgers has been kind of mediocre on and off, but he still has this elite duo in Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. Justin Herbert just had his first big game over 16 fantasy points finally this season here. Again, the higher options probably aren't someone I'm really trying to go for. If I'm starting any of those three guys, I kind of rather have Winston, Stafford, or Nix this week if I'm streaming quarterbacks, because I think those guys are streaming quarterbacks. So, but I threw those names out there because they are probably available in that 40 to 60% range. Dynasty, again, it's really nothing crazy right now. I mean, you're looking at Drew Lock still if Daniel Jones fails once again tonight. Jake Haener. He kind of took over for Spencer Rattler. But again, they just said that Derek Carr will probably be back in week 9. So he might not even be worth picking up there. And maybe Malik Willis got dropped in places that he might be available in Dynasty still for you. So, all right. And again, like I said, waivers this week aren't that great, guys. And that's why I look at my running backs. There's no top running backs to go pick up this week. That's how bad the running back position is. So, Coach Tyler, I'll let you start. Just give me a couple, give me 2 running backs out of that group there, or if you have some people that you like that are worth going out and rostering. Because at this point, and at least this week, and it could change as we move through the season, but at least this week, you're not finding a player that you can just almost guarantee you can, plug in and start as your RB2 with confidence this week. None of these running backs scream confidence. They have something about them that, there's some upside, but there's no confidence starting any of them. But of these of any of those running backs that you can see on our website on our YouTube channel, Coach Tyler, which of those running backs would you want to be picking up and putting on your bench for upside?
Yeah. The first one, I'm honestly going to have to go with Dalvin Cook. That Dallas team is just searching for answers. And we finally saw him come out and get some play yesterday. 1 10-yard reception in the receiving game, only averaged 2 yards a carry on 6 rushes, but he was playing the freaking 49ers. Like, come on. Especially with how abysmal that Dallas offensive line has been this year. They weren't going to push the ball anywhere. But this team is just looking for answers, right? It's obviously not Ezekiel Elliott. If he doesn't score a touchdown yesterday, he doesn't have much of a night. 10 carries for 34 yards and a 4-yard reception. And, Dalvin Cook has been good in the past, obviously, but there's just not a lot to look forward to in this backfield. And I think that Cook might have to be a guy to come out of it and actually start to get play, because Dowdle hadn't been amazing. And Ezekiel Elliott is a shell of the man that he was the last time he put on a Dallas uniform. And so I got to go Dalvin, just, going for a team that's searching for answers. And then I'm going to go Justice Hill. Honestly, Justice Hill has been a guy that if you can hit on him right, you have a fairly decent week, right? And it's really only games that the Ravens have to either play from behind or play catch up with. That's what we've been talking about with Justice Hill all season. So, they go into Denver. I don't think they're going to struggle with Denver, so I wouldn't be overly confident in playing him. But, there's weeks throughout the rest of the season that I would feel fairly confident throwing Justice Hill in and saying, I don't think he's going to get a ton of the rushing production, but he'll get 4 dump-offs and he can make a move and go bust one for 20 yards, and I'm having a fairly decent week with him in one of my lower flex spots. And, even on one of those, he might end up in the end zone. So then I'm having a really good week throwing him in there. So I got to go Dalvin Cook and I got to go Justice Hill. One, just a team looking for anything, and then Justice Hill just understanding the schedule and playing it right, because he has a very defined role, and that's all he's been in fantasy this year. And so if you play it right, if you start him on the weeks that you need him, and he plays in a matchup where Baltimore should be back and forth, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah, no, those are solid picks that definitely the right way to explain them. Some other guys that I want to go out there and talk a little bit more about it is Sean Tucker. Definitely still someone I want to pick up. I know this Bucs offense has 3 running backs in their roster that are all being used. Sean Tucker, unfortunately, is being used the fewest, but We've seen Rachaad White. We've seen Bucky Irving kind of deal with injuries or at least being banged up at portions of this season here. And it seems like if one of them were to miss, like Sean Tucker actually gets into a very valuable role because the Bucs are now using their running backs in the passing game at a high rate compared to what it was maybe a few weeks ago. Now that they don't have a true wide receiver in the passing game that they can completely rely on without Godwin or without Evans for a few more weeks, the running game is really good. And so if Bucky Irving or Rachaad White misses, Sean Tucker will fill in a role, and he's shown us in the passing game he's been really good. Another one is Blake Corum. And again, he's more of a wait and see kind of guy. Karan Williams, like he's taken a big workload for a smaller guy consistently, and he's going to continue to receive that. And if at some point this season he gets banged up, like Blake Corum is someone I kind of want on my roster who's just a bulldozer type of running back that can just knock off people and gain extra yards. And later in the season, he's definitely someone I want to hold on to because God forbid something happens to Williams, Blake Corum can kind of come in and take the RB1 role for this offense here and have big value for us in fantasy. So those are some guys that are also there. Just to name the rest of them real quickly that you might want to be able to pick up. And again, a lot of these running backs, for me personally, I'm picking them up strictly because of upside. If I'm lacking running backs, if I need a spot or two to fill, I'm taking upside plays with these guys because a lot of these guys, if the starter ends up going down, they end up getting hurt. Then these guys kind of come in and fill in as high-end wide RB2s or better for us in fantasy football. So like you're looking at Braylon Allen, Trey Benson, Roshan Johnson, kind of like Justice Hill has some value on his own a little bit there in Chicago. Jalen McLaughlin had a touchdown this past week here. Audric Estime might end up seeing more work as Javonte Williams has kind of struggled in a very favorable matchup in week 8. Emmanuel Wilson, Jalen Wright, Kendry Miller did get hurt, but he's definitely another guy who saw some work this past week here. Ty Chandler, Isaiah Guerrero might be a guy to stash because we know CMC may be coming back. Jordan Mason did get banged up this past week here. Guerrero looked decent. He might be a good guy to stash, maybe not to go after waivers tonight or tomorrow night, but after waivers clear and he's still sitting there, maybe you stash him on your bench. Ray Davis is obviously still a good candidate to go and pick up there. So there's some options there at running back, but none that actually can give you probably a spot start for the most part, outside of maybe Johnston and Hill probably. Some higher guys that are out there like Jalen Warren, I still want to pick him up. Tyler Algier has a role in Atlanta there. Those are good pickups. In Dynasty, it gets really bad, unfortunately. There's just nobody in Dynasty to pick up. The best players to pick up for Dynasty running backs are fullbacks. Kai Juszczyk, Alec Ingle. Like they're seeing some work that if you're desperate in a Dynasty league and you need someone to fill in as an RB2 for you 1 week, they might get you 6 points. But yeah, the Dynasty landscape for running backs is not really good right now to go find anybody. So, right. Over to wide receiver here. There's some good options here. We actually have a list compared to the running backs here. Starting at the top here, my top 4 right now this week are, Cedric Tillman, obviously a beast from last week, kind of did the same thing again, had high target share, had 2 touchdowns this past week, over 90 yards, really good. Parker Washington, I kind of mentioned him earlier, finds himself as a potential wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 in this Jags offense. Ricky Pearsall saw some work in this offense here this past week. He had a nice run over 19 yards, which was really impressive here. Rashad Bateman is kind of seeing some work. And again, like Coach Tyler said, that offense for the Ravens is going to be times where there's going to be shootouts and Bateman's going to take advantage of those opportunities. But Coach Tyler, who is your overall top waiver wire pickup at wide receiver this week?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Cedric Tillman. If you look back, Cedric Tillman is in his 2nd year. And if you go back and look at what Cedric Tillman played in college, you think about that Hendon Hooker Tennessee offense, right?
Yeah.
He's got basically the same kind of quarterback back there with Jameis Winston now. So Cedric Tillman's going to be able to thrive. This is a type of, pitch and catch that he played a lot in college. And this is what is effectively working for him. Last week it wasn't even Jameis Winston and he was still 12 targets, 8 for 81. And so we know that he can get downfield. We know that he can make catches and we know that he can make plays. And this week sort of hit on the consistency of it and just the immediate rapport with Winston, 7 for 9 for 99 and 2 touchdowns. I don't think that's going to be his stat line every week. If he could do that every week, then go trade literally everyone on your team for him. But I think that he could keep that 7 for 90-ish range fairly easily. The touchdown variance is going to be there, especially like we talked about with Winston. They don't have the easiest schedule coming out of the bye week. But I love Tillman in the spot. I also do love Pearsall. He is a guy that we talked about a lot throughout the offseason, a guy that we were excited about. And then obviously injury and literally getting shot happened. And so we didn't get to see a ton of him at the beginning of this season. But with the way the injuries have shaped out, with the way that they are continuing to shape out with the 49ers, which it just feels like this time of year, every year, the 49ers are finding a way to get injured. I don't understand it, but they just like to do it. But Pearsall is going to be a guy that has to go out there and, even on 59% of snaps, 4 for 38, and then that 139-yard rush. On 59% of snaps, I love that. If we can get that up to 80, 85 as he's continuing to work back, especially after this bye week in what's most likely going to be a shootout against Tampa Bay, those numbers are going to jump if he's healthy and if he continues to stay healthy. And so I love the fact that he's slotting in, we're missing Ayuk for the rest of the season. So a 2 is going to have to step up. And, Juwan Jennings had his fun when all the receivers were out. I don't think he's going to be the 2. Jacob Cowing is just a returner. Chris Conley, I swear I saw that dude commit 12 penalties yesterday. And so it's going to be Ricky. And so I go Cedric and Ricky as my top 2 here, even with all the Jacksonville injuries. Just Cedric, just the way that he plays in the system that he's used to, it's going to work so well with Jameis. And then Ricky sliding into the number 2 spot on one of the most effective offenses in football. It's not a bad place to be.
No, I agree. I absolutely love that. Some other options to consider. I know Alan Lazard's kind of banged up right now. He actually might go in IR, but he's still an option. Kayshon Boutte is kind of the best Patriots wide receiver at this moment. He's the only one seeing a solid target share and playing the most snaps in the offense. Jalen Coker, rookie from the Panthers. Deontay Johnson might get traded this week. And he's been playing decently well for an undrafted rookie and a team that has no real weapons. Definitely an option. Noah Brown, I'm not saying his 50-yard touchdown at the end of the game is something to experience every single week, but he's had moments in the Washington Commanders offense as the wide receiver 2 for the team. Elijah Moore had his first good game, I think, as a Brown this past week here, and he's been with the team for 2 years. Michael Wilson continues to catch touchdowns here and there for the Cardinals. Nick Westbrook-Akine, I think it's supposed to be an I, not a K, but he's got 3 straight games of a touchdown and led the team in snaps this past week here, kind of filling that DeAndre Hopkins role. Not trying to really wanting a Titans on my team, but he's seen touchdowns, and that's what we want in fantasy. And then Josh Palmer has back-to-back decent outings with Quentin Johnson out on the field. Might be something to consider. For those teams that are seeing some other players, like higher percentage guys like Keon Coleman might still be out there. I want Keon Coleman. He's probably just behind Cedric Tillman for me personally in terms of picking up waiver claims. Jalen McMillan, I know it wasn't a great week for him, but I still believe that there's a chance for him to kind of bounce back for that Tampa offense. Jerry Jeudy is still an option out there. Josh Downs, I know I'm hearing rumblings and maybe Flacco starts week 9, which is definitely something I'd consider. And Dynasty, Raheem Jarrett, I think I'm saying it wrong.
Raheem Jarrett. Yeah,
Jarrett.
Jarrett.
Yeah, he came off IR and had some production for Tampa this past week here. He might be available out there if you're looking for a stash guy. Tim Jones is the number 2 or 3 wide receiver in Jacksonville now. Might see some value there in fantasy for him as well. There's some options there for those dynasty owners, that's for sure. So, and then finally, the tight end position here, guys. I think it's actually changed a little bit. This week is actually the first time I don't think I've seen the same exact names over and over again. But the guys under the 40% ownership, looking at Noah Fant, still didn't have the best week, but still a pretty reliable option at tight end. Mike Gesicki, if T. Higgins remains out, Mike Gesicki becomes somewhat of an option. Had a pretty solid week, 7 for 73. Will Disley's had back-to-back decent outings with Hayden Hurst kind of banged up. I kind of mentioned Brenton Strange. The Jaguars kind of played a little bit more 2 tight end set with all their wide receivers out, and that might continue going into this week. Tyler Conklin's always just a fan favorite to have on waiver wires. But Coach Tyler, is there anyone here in that listing that you really want to pick up for tight end or should be picked up for tight end if needed?
Yeah, I really have liked Will Dissly. He obviously had a lot better week last week, but we're still putting up double-digit fantasy points in 2 straight weeks. The Chargers receivers, obviously Ladd McConkey had a great day yesterday.
Good for him.
But just figuring out anyone else to throw the ball to has been so hard for especially the fantasy world, and really even Justin Herbert at a lot of times. Their team ranks 28th in offense, 28th in passing attempts, 26th in passing yards and touchdowns. But Dissly has put up 2 straight double-digit point weeks, and the bigger underlying aspect of that is that these past 2 weeks we see 11 and 7 targets, which if you've heard me talk about tight ends, I don't care how big of a name you are. If you can get the target share, then you're going to be somewhat successful. That's what I believe. And obviously, this was National Tight End Week, so his 11 or is it 11 points? I think I'm looking at bonuses here. So his, 9.1 points ranks as around tight end 20 as of right now, barring or no, not even barring. We're past Monday Night Football.
No, not Monday Night Football.
Oh my gosh, I've got all my days.
Don't worry, he'll probably still be there. I don't expect Pat Freiermuth or Theo Johnson to outshine him. So
yeah, I'm a little tired, guys. But yeah, obviously this is a crazy week for tight ends, especially in a year where we haven't had any giant tight end, for sure guys outside of like a George Kittle or possibly a Sam Laporta. And so I really like to chase the targets on that. I love the fact that Dissly is getting that big of a target share, especially in the minimal offense that this Chargers team has had. But I do like Noah Fant. The Seahawks are continuing to throw the ball, and he's getting steady targets. It's nothing crazy. Lots of 3-4 target weeks, a couple 6s jumping up. But he's just consistently on a good offense that can throw the ball. So I do like him there. But Dissly, if he can continue this streak of getting the targets, I think that he's going to be perfectly fine for you in fantasy.
Yeah, no, I've always liked Will Dissly, big Montana. Some other options at tight end. One of the Saints tight ends. I mean, Joe Johnston, Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau. I mean, it's not pretty, but maybe deeper man leagues. Theo Johnson, if he ends up having a solid week this week, maybe he's in a consideration. There's nothing for dynasty tight ends, unfortunately. I don't really see anything that's worth mentioning. The higher percentage guys are the ones I'd probably want to target if they're available. I know Kate Auden is in one of my 10-man leagues, is still out there. So if he's available, I'm putting everything I can at him. Mark Andrews seemed to be, to me, he's back in my good graces at this moment. He's been playing very well for fantasy. Those guys, I want to target them if they're still randomly sitting on your waiver wire. Zach Ertz he impressed me last week. I didn't expect him to do as well as he did. Hunter Henry will have better weeks, hopefully when Drake May gets back. Those guys I'd rather have over any of these bottom under 40% guys. So, but the tight end landscape, there could be someone out there for you to go out and grab. But again, like I said, waivers this week outside of maybe Cedric Tillman, and I'm talking about players under 40%. Like that's really it for me to want to go out there and spend a lot of fab on, because for the most part, I'd rather wait for that big wide receiver to fall, because another wide receiver will fall. I mean, running back. I'm sorry, running back will fall for us in fantasy. It's an unfortunate truth, but another running back will fall, which will give us another running back that has potential RB1 upside. And I'm saving my money at this point to go out and get. So. But we're going to wrap things up for the night, guys. Like I said, our waiver wire shows are very quick and easy, 30 minutes in and out. Coach Tyler, is there anything you want to mention before we get going?
Yeah, go check out dynastynerds.com. We talk about it every show. If this is your first time tuning in with us, that's how me and Coach Steve met. We both write and do work for them over there. Coach Steve does a lot of the everything always, and a lot of my focus is on Devi and more towards the draft time. But go check out Dynasty Nerds. When you get over there, use code COACH, get access to the Dynasty GM, look at your trade value calculators, look at just how much better your Dynasty team is than all your other league mates. And also you can get into that Dynasty film room, which is where I'm spending a lot of my time just watching all these 2025s that we're preparing for in Dynasty. So go over to Dynasty Nerds, use code COACH, and thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And we thank you guys for listening. As always, if you're listening live on our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Coaches, we always give you guys a good show to watch, visual content instead of us just talking randomly and not knowing what we're saying at the time here. And as always, guys, go check out us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're over on Instagram. We're over on TikTok. Go, like and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe there. We'd appreciate it. We're just trying to do what we can to help you guys win championships by giving you the knowledge that we go out of our way for free to give you guys as much as possible. So we thank you guys all for listening. We'll be back later this week at some point giving our start and sit show for week 9. But until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your week 8. Good luck on your waivers for week 9, and we'll see you next time.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple